Masha'en kein Maisa mitzvahs, as opposed to Maisa mitzvahs. So let's go through this quickly, okay? The Alter Rebbe is explaining the milas of mitzvahs Maisa. So the first thing he said was the mitzvahs Maisa, a mila of Yechudim. You bring down godliness into Atzilus. The second thing is birurim, because the birurim you bring down Yemavada the Kalim of Biyah, you bring down the Kislev. The third Inyan is the idea that mitzvahs are mamshech Atzilus itself lamata. When you do a physical mitzvah, you bring down the atmos of Atzilus to this world, which is not the case when you have the Chilul Rechim Sichlim, Avas Hashem, and Yiras Hashem, all those good stuff. And I think that this is true even when you're learning Teda. But you're learning not Teda, which is halacha lemaiseh, but Teda, which is theoretical stuff in Teda. Over there we say it's a ha'ara. It's only a light of the Atzilus. So therefore when it comes from a higher level to a lower level, it's diminished, it's a tzimtzum. And when it comes to mitzvahs maiseh, it's mamish Atzilus lamata. Why? Why are mitzvahs different? That we therefore say that when a person does a mitzvah, it's the atmos of Atzilus which is coming lamata without any shino. So the Rebbe explains, Masha'en kein mitzvahs, Maisa mitzvahs. On the other hand, Maisa mitzvahs, that when you do them, you're mamshach the atmos of Elokus lamata. The reason for this is because Maisa Elikim Hema, they're the acts of God mamish, and I guess you could translate Elikim as being a Elam ha'atzmi. Hine, b'derech ishtalshalus, the way they come down through the chain reaction. Mikelim d'Atzilus l'biyah, from the vessels of Atzilus to B'riya Yitzir and Asiya, that they come mimuhusan va'atzmusan dechitenius. It's the very, very essence of the chitenius hakelim of Atzilus. Kemei aderech mashal, for example, esreg umina, the esreg in other three minim. Hilbish behen HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter invests in the physical esreg, in the physical lulav and adasam and eravis, mimuhusan va'atzmusan, from the very essence, the chasadim Pnimiyim dezah, from the chasadim of Pnimiyim zah, v'hainu mebechinas chitzeni yusan. He says Pnimiyim, and he says, what do I mean? Pnimiyim, I mean chitzeni yusan, the chitzenius. Keneidas, it is known, b'chol mitzvahs maisius, by all mitzvahs maisius. What did the Rebbe just say? Mitzvahs maisius come down into the Gashmi world in a way that they're literally atzilus down here, zero shinui. Why? Because Mahusan Vatzmusan, the very essence of mitzvahs maisis, comes down lamata, because they come from Pnimius, the Hainu Chitonius. What does this mean? Let me explain it to you. Let me tell you what. You have to understand that Yiddishkeit, B'chal Ishtashas has two parts, Eidos and Kalim. Guf and Isham, right? Atmas and Giloyim. What's the difference between Eidos and Kalim? Eidos Giloy and Eidos Ha'ara. When you shine a light, it reflects its source and it bounces off a vessel. If it's closer to a source, it's going to be more concentrated. If it's further from the source, it's going to be less concentrated. In other words, the nature of light is that it operates in the system of ha'ara. Ha'ara means when the oil goes from a higher level to a lower level, it changes to accommodate the new vessels, the new kelim. Kelim are very different than oil. On the one hand, in Kelim, you don't see any godliness whatsoever. You look at Kelim, you don't see godliness. It's called Dveikus Bilti Nikeres. Oid is called Dveikus Nikeres, and Kelim is called Bilti Nikeres. You look at Kelim, you say no godliness. On the other hand, Chassidus says Kelim are not just the revelation of Elokus. In Kelim, you have the etzem of Elokus. The essence of godliness is in Kelim even more than in Oid. And there's a very interesting thing about Kelim, and that is that every Keli is its own essence. The oil reveals the source. And if you shine, let's say I give you a very physical mashal. You have 10 red hot coals. And these 10 red hot coals are producing flame. If the 10 red hot coals produce flame, the flame is one, the coals remain 10. The nature of Eid is Dveikus, the nature of Eid is Gilui, and the nature of Eid is Ha'ara. When the oil comes from a higher level to a lower level, it changes. Kalim aren't even from Etzem, essence. Either they're not here at all, or if they're here in their essence mamish. So the Alter Rebbe tells you, I want you to know mitzvahs come from Kelim. That's the mile of mitzvahs of Torah. Because mitzvahs come from Kelim, if the godliness of the Kelim of Atzilus comes out into this world in mitzvahs, it's the essence of the Kelim of Atzilus themselves that come out into this world. Because there's no such thing as the revelation of vessels. The vessels either are or they aren't. You can't reveal the vessels. The light can be revealed. And when you reveal the light, you always make it less. And you change it according to the different worlds. The Kelim remain, wherever they are, the same essence. So the Alter Rebbe uses very funny words. He says, the very essence of the Chitzonius of the Kelim of Atzilus are here. That means the Pnimius. I mean the Chitzonius. Right? That's what he says. Memhusam was musen the Chitzeni Yusa. That Hilbish HaKadosh Baruch Memhusam was musen the Chasadim Pnimiyim Dezav, V'hainam V'chenes Chitzeni Yusa. The Nekudah I told you yesterday, this is in Chassidus Nayim Beis, in the third Chelik, the Teira comes from Oyer. And the Tzir of Teira comes from Pnimiyas, the Pnimiyas HaKelim. Pnimiyas of Pnimiyas HaKelim is Gavni Ha'oyer. Mitzvahs comes from the Chitzenius of Pnimiyas HaKelim. It's not from Pnimiyas of Pnimiyas HaKelim, it's from the Chitzenius of Pnimiyas HaKelim. Because the Chilik between Pnimiyas HaKelim and Chitzenius HaKelim is Pnimiyas HaKelim are Getlachkeit and Chitzenius HaKelim are Metzias. Just like Bepashtas. The Pnimiyas of the Kli is Makabel, the Chitzenius of the Kli is Mashpia. So Pnimiyas HaKelim, the whole is be Makabel from higher. Chitzenius HaKelim is to be Mashpia. But Pnimiyas of Pnimiyas HaKelim is so bottled to the Oir, it's more or less Oir. And that's not a Maila, that's a Chasadim. Because the way Oir operates B'derach Ha'oreh and B'derach Gilun. But Chitzonius of Pnimiyas HaKelim, it's a Lakus because it's Pnimiyas HaKelim, but it has the Maila of Atzmus because it's the Chitzonius of Pnimiyas HaKelim. In other words, the perfect godliness is Chitzonius of Pnimiyas HaKelim. Why? Because Sai it's godly, and Sai has the Maila of Etzem, because it's Kelim and not Oir. The reason it is in mitzvahs more than in Teira, that when you do a mitzvah, you say this physical esrik is Kelim of Atzilus Mamash. Mehuson v'atzmus, without any shinoi, has to do with the fact that it comes from Kelim of Atzilus. Which part of Kelim of Atzilus? Chitzenius of Kelim of Atzilus. What does Chitzenius of Atzilus mean? Pnimiyas HaKelim. In other words, Chitzenius of Pnimiyas HaKelim. Again, Pnimiyas HaKelim b'chal is Getlachkeit. But the Pnimiyas of Pnimiyas HaKelim is really only Oir. And Oir is Ha'oreh. And Ha'oreh has shinuyim. Chitzonius of Pnimiyas HaKelim has the perfect madrega, has every mile. Side the mile of Elokus and side the mile of Matthias. So therefore, when you have a physical esrik, it's a physical thing. This physical esrik of Pikabala is the Kelim of Atzilus Mamish. This is true only in mitzvahs. It's not true in Teira. The chiddush of this against the chiddush is going to be that when you're learning Teira, halacha l'maisa, which is negeh to mitzvahs, even Teira has this ma'ila. That is the atzmus of Atzilus Mamish, which is coming lamat. Says the Rebbe. So we just spoke about the third ma'ila of mitzvahs. The third ma'ila of mitzvahs is that you're bringing a lakus mamish or any shini whatsoever onto this world, because it's kelim of Atzilus, not oir. If it would be oir, it would be gila. If it would be gila, it would be madregis. Keli is etzem. Finished. The fire of Atzilus, the vessels of Atzilus themselves are there in this world, because there's no gila, there's no ha'ara. It's the etzem mamish. He says, Mashenkin Adam, as opposed to a person. Now, a person has a neshama. A neshama is similar to Kelim of Atzilus. You know why? What's a neshama? What do we know about neshamas Yisrael? Neshamas Yisrael are called Elakus Shenasu Nivra. Neshamas are godliness that became a thing. Taira is ayir, it's godliness. Neshamas are called Elakus Shenasu Nivra. They come from godliness and they become a creation. Why? Because neshamas also come from kelim. But the neshamas don't come from chitzonius of pnimius hakelim. They come from pnimius of chitzonius hakelim. You see the difference? There's four madreges. There's pnimius of pnimius, chitzonius of pnimius, those are all the kus. Then you have pnimius of chitzonius and chitzonius of chitzonius. Chitzonius of chitzonius, that's the makar of elumus and the makar of malach. Pnimius of chitzonius is the makar of neshamas. Neshamas come into this world, they're not godliness. But inside there's godliness. Elukus shenas anivra. Mitzvahs come into this world, they're bepashtas godliness. Why? Because mitzvahs are chitenis of pnimius hakelim. Pnimius hakelim are elukus. Neshamas are also elukus, but elukus shenas anivra because they're the pnimius of chitenis hakelim. He says, so a mitzvah is the kelim of Atzilus Mamish and Asiyah. What about a yid's neshama? A yid's neshama also comes from kelim. He says it's different. Mashenkin Adam, a yid's neshama. And by the way, the inyan of neshamas is going to be discussed at great length on Daf Kuf Nun Zayin. You'll see soon. Even a person neshama atzilus, which is l'chayda get l'chayt, still. And neshamas come from kelim, so they're l'kus b'yetzer, not just begilim. But ma'acha shemalubeshes beguf, since the neshama is not revealed in a body, lo yucha limtzei benafshei. A person cannot reveal in his own neshama, ulahasik, and to reach mehusan v'atzmusan, the essence, shal pnimis achasatim dezada atzilus, the godliness which is hidden inside the neshama of a yid, which comes from the pnimis achasadim of zada atzilus. And I would translate over here, pnimis achasadim means Pnimius of Chitonius. Before Pnimius meant Chitonius of Pnimius. Now Pnimius, since it's speaking about Neshamas, is Pnimius of Chitonius. Why? Ki Atzilos, the level of a Yiddish Neshama, that down here is also Atzilos, Hi Bechinas Chaya because Elamus is only the Madrega of Chaya, of the worlds, Atzilos Bri Yatzir Asiya, Shi Bechinas Makif, that in Neshama it's hidden, Milmaila and surrounding from above, and it's not revealed. Mitzvahs down here are Lakus Begilui. The idea that a neshama is Elakus Shenasa Nivra, Begila you see Nivra. The Elakus aspect of it, which is the Chaya aspect of it, is Behelim. I mean, if you don't know what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is, there's a concept in Kabbalah called Iva Chayei Echad V'Gamei Echad. That the Kelim moment Elakus. This is only Pnimius HaKelim. Mitzvahs come from Pnimius HaKelim, so they're still Iva V'Gamei Echad. So they have the Mila Dveikus for Elakus, but they also have the Mila of Kelim. And therefore they have atzmos. The shamas come from Chesenius HaKelim. But the shamas, we say Yotzu v'Nifradu. They're not Iva Gamei Echad. They're not one with Elakus. They're separate. The Elakus Shenasa Nivra. So a neshama down here may be godly, but its godliness is hidden. A mitzvah down here may be hidden, but it's godly. In other words, you may not see overtly how a physical fruit is getlach. That fruit is Kelim of Atzilas Mamish. And this is unique to mitzvahs. Okay, so when neshama is Yisrael, it's Kiyam, it's a Yusa. You can only have a knowledge of the form of godliness of Atzilos Ayadei Dechilu Rechimu Sichlim through Yid and Av, which comes from his bonus. So what he's saying is that a neshama may be godliness in essence, but the essence of its godliness is hidden. It's not begilui. Okay? In the mitzvahs, the godliness is revealed. We're just saying that a Yid, through his bonus, through Avas Hashem, and through Yiras Hashem, cannot reveal the godliness of his neshama, just like there is godliness in a mitzvah. What about the fact that it says that Moshe Rabbeinu saw the Acharaim of Elokus, which is the Mahus of Atzilus? So yesterday he said that Acharaim is only a Ha'ara. Now we're saying that Acharaim is Sof Kol Sof Atzilus. So he answers, this is Hu B'derech Nevuah Daf. He says, Nevuah, Shu is Pashas HaGashmius, which requires a person to completely lose his connection to Gashmius. Like it says in Pashas Mishpatim. So the Pashas, what he's saying is that yes, when a person experiences Nevuah, that's a Gili of Atzilas Mamish. In Amar Chasidus it says that Nevuah is Riyah Chushis, not Riyah Sichlis. But normally a Neshama Beguf is not able to experience the godliness of the Eibishter or the godliness of its own soul, Begilui. When you do a mitzvah, you're touching Kelim of Atzilas Mamish. Why is this? Why is it that a neshama cannot reveal the godliness of its neshama or experience godliness through his bonus on a level of muhus? The fish liver, impossible for any creation, lahasik to reach, klum anything, b'muhus alakus in the essence of godliness, shehu habeiri, which is the creator. Since we can't understand the Eibishter, you can't have a true manifestation and grasp and connectedness to the Eibishter. You learn about the Eibishter, you think about the Eibishter, you have Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, since it's not the truth of the Eibishter, so your experience is not the essence of Alakus of Atzilus. So now, I know this is very technical. The Nekuda is Neshamas are Alakus and Mitzvahs are Alakus. But the Elakus of a neshama is hidden, the Elakus of a mitzvah is revealed. Since the Elakus of a neshama is hidden, when a neshama tries to connect to the Eibishter, it does his bonus and hasaga, it's only a ha'ara. In mitzvahs, the Elakus of the Kelim of Atzilus itself is revealed, therefore you do a physical mitzvah, you're holding Atzilus mamish. As opposed to the Yossi. Says the Alter Rebbe, when you're holding the Esek, you're holding Kelim of Atzilas Mamish, Chayesei, it's life. Nimshacha is drawn. V'nishtalshlin, it comes on from a chain reaction. Mimuhus, Chitzeni is the Kelim, the Nukva Dezod Atzilas. From the very essence of the Chitzelim, of the Kelim of Malchus of Atzilas. And again, how you read the word Chitzenius? Chitzenius of Pnimius HaKelim. Since it's Pnimius HaKelim, it's Elakus, it's Iva Gamei Echad, it's Momen Atzmus. But since it's Chitzenius, it has the mile of being Atzmi. Pnimius of HaKelim are Oyer. Oyer is Ha'ara. Ha'ara is Tzimtzum. Chitzonius of Pnimius HaKelim is every mile. Sai it's a Lakus. And Sai, since it's not one with the Oyer, it has the mile of Etzim. In other words, Etzim means whatever it is, it doesn't change. It goes from one place to another, it remains exactly the same. That's what mitzvahs are. They're Chitzonius of Pnimius HaKelim, and therefore in Asiyah they're Atzilas Mamish. Okay? So Mahus Chitzonius means Mahus Chitzonius of Pnimius HaKelim of Atzilas. Shu B'chinas Lakus, which is a Lakus Mamish. which costs a Beitz Chaim, in Kabbalah. Shakala Peiros, all the fruits in this world that are used for mitzvahs, Hein Ba'atzilus, they existed in Atzilus. Kilam et Kelam Da'atzilus, the 30 vessels of Atzilus. Yardu Lebriya Yetir Asiyah, the 10 Tebriya Yetir Nasiyah. Ve'hen Yudam Ha'amoris, which are the 10 utterances, Shebet Nivra Elohim, with which the Eibishter created the world. And the 30 Kelim of Atzilus, which are godliness, Ayedei is Lapshus, by revealing themselves, Benukvad Asiyah, in Malchus of Asiyah, Mehus, B'mehus, an essence in an essence. These two words, Mehus, B'mehus, are the most two important words. Why? Usually when you mashpiyah from a higher level to a lower level, it's a ha'ara, it's a gilu. Since we're talking about Kelim, and Kelim are in etzim, you know what it means, Kelim are in etzim? Kelim don't have babies. Kelim can't split. Kelim can't multiply. Kelim can't divide. Okay, if a Keli comes down from a higher level to a lower level, okay, if it's the same Keli that was in a higher level, it's Mahuz Mahuz, it's exactly the same. The essence of Kelim of Atzilus come down to the Kelim of Asiyah, because in Kelim there's no such thing as Gilui, and there's no such thing as Hod. It's the essence itself which is here. Ki Kelim da Atzilus, the Kelim of Atzilus themselves, Nasu Neshama of Asiyah, they become the Neshama of Asiyah, She Bechirus of Lukus Mamish, which is the Lukus Mamish of Kelim of Asiyah. Ki Lefisha Ba'atzilus, in Atzilus, Iyuvagamei Echad, the Kelim of Atzilus, and because we're talking about Pnimius HaKelim, and specifically Chitzenius of Pnimius HaKelim, is one with a Lukus. Hamaitzel v'anetzel ein sof for Atzilus. So therefore, in Atzilus, the Kelim of Atzilus, Chitzenius of Pnimius HaKelim of Atzilus, are Lukus Mamish. And Vaidei is Lapshus Mehusa Neshama. Neshama doesn't mean the Neshama of a person. It means the Madreg of Eid Neshama B'Biyah. B'Mehusa Kelim, the Nukvad Asiyah, through the Hashpah of the Eid Neshama, which carries the Kelim of Atzilus to the Kelim of Asiyah, Nishave HaEseg, it creates the physical Eseg. In other words, the courier, basically what he's saying is, I hate the word basically, but I'm using it, the carrier of Kelim of Atzilus to Asiyah is called Eid Neshama B'Biyah. The light in the Neshama B'Biyah. We're going to have much discussion about Eid Neshama B'Biyah at the end of this Igeres HaKedesh, which I hope we'll learn properly. Eid Neshama B'Biyah is Gvul, but it's Alakus. Because it's Alakus, it's able to carry Alakus. Eid Neshama B'Biyah is Oir, it's not Keli. And it carries the Kelim of Atzilus to Asiyah. And it delivers them in Kelim of Asiyah. So Eid Neshama is Oir. It carries the Kelim of Atzilus and delivers it to Kelim of Atzilus. Since in the beginning it's Kelim, and in the end it's Kelim, we say it's Mehus B'Mehus, it's the exact same essence. The Kelim of Atzilus are in the Kelim of Asiyah. And the bottom line is that the physical esrik is a Lakus Mamish. Nimtza, therefore, when you hold the physical esrog, you shake it as Allah is, you're holding mamish. The vitality which is in this esrog, which is minukva Atzilus, which is from Malchus of Atzilus, which is on Kesser, which is higher than Atzilus. So there's something very unique about mitzvahs. Since mitzvah connected to Kelim, and Kelim there are lakus, and it's nimshach, mimhus lemahus. Those two words, mimhus lemahus, are the key. It's not really the gilui of Atzilus and Biyah, because there's no such thing as a gilui of Kelim. It's the Kelim themselves being transported from Atzilus to Biyah, because they pass through Eid Neshama, as opposed to Eid Nefesh Ruach. The physical esrik is Kelim of Atzilus Mamish. Now, what about an esrik which you didn't use for a mitzvah? Allah Esregim, the Kelim Atzilus. So, of course, the answer is the Kelim, the rest of the Esregim, the Elokus is hidden. In the esrik which is used for a mitzvah, the Kelim of Atzilus are revealed. Mashayka B'Kavanah say, as opposed to when a person has a kavanah, limud, his bandinus, avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, and so forth, says Alter Rebbe, eni masik v'teifis, he is not reaching and grasping the alakus of Atzilus mamish. Af hayadei haseid, even if you know the Kabbalah of Seder Ishtalshalos, limits Yosef only the form and not the essence. In other words, when you think about the Eibishter, and even when you learn about the Eibishter, and you develop Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, Seichel and Oir is Gilui and Ha'ara. Since there's Gilui and Ha'ara, there's change. So when the way they understand the Lakus of Atzilus is very different than the way they understand the Lakus down here, to the extent that we'll call Atzilus Hasaga of Mahus, and then here we'll call it only Metzias. But that's because it's Oir. Mitzvahs are Kelim. Kelim don't have any Gilui, Kelim are essence, and therefore, since mitzvahs come from Kelim, it's Kelim of Atzilus Mamish, which come down into Asiyah. So now, even though it's not clear, it seems that the Alter Rebbe is packaging together the avoid of his bonus ava v'yira and limud ateiru. Just like his bonus nafas Hashem, yiras Hashem only gives you the mitzias of alakus, not the mahus. The same is true when you're learning Torah, not ali but the hilchas. Even if you're learning Kabbalah, you only have a oid and a ha'ara of atzilus, which is called mitzias and not mahus. Now comes the bigger chiddush. Ach belimud halachas esrik. When a person learns the halachas of esrik, now learning is the chayra seichel, and seichel is the chayra ha'ara, and ha'ara should be a shinoi from the way you learned the halacha b'gashmis from the way it is atzilus. Like the Alter Rebbe Chiddush Nifla. Not only is it true that a mitzvah, since mitzvahs are kelim, so the etzem of the mitzvah in atzilus is nimshach to the gashmis like a keli. It's true also in the limit of halachas. Okay, that masig v'teifis esrig mamish, a person is reaching and grasping the esrig mamish u'mitzvasi and the mitzvah halacha. As Allah is, the level of speech and thought. Just like doing the mitzvah is grasping the keli of atilus itself with your hands, learning the halachas of the mitzvah is grasping the keli of atilus itself with your mind and with your mouth. Dibur and machshav. The koshkin alimid asad, and especially if you're learning the Kabbalah of the mitzvah. Kabbalah doesn't tell you halachas. Kabbalah tells you Tanya mitzvahs. If you're learning the reasons for the mitzvahs, when you learn the reasons for the mitzvahs, you're holding the side of the mitzvah. When you're holding the side of the mitzvah, the tami mitzvahs are pikabala. So you're holding the kelim of atzilus through Torah. Zakter aber, avadavke say this mitzvah only when you learn the Kabbalah of mitzvahs. The legarim malimut halachaseh. Just like when you're learning the halachas, even though Torah is oir seichel. When you're learning the seichel of a mitzvah, you're holding in machshav and dibur the gashmi is the esreg. The same is true when you're learning the Kabbalah of the esreg. You're holding in your machshav and dibur the gashmi is the esreg va'adarabah v'chuli. You're holding it even more. Even if you don't understand it so much, when you're learning the Kabbalah, even if your ability to understand Kabbalah is deficient and is limited, when you're learning the Kabbalah, you're holding the alakus of the esreg. Shine.